For the last few months, my life has been consumed by this little series called Jojo's Bizarre Adventure. I've watched part 1 through 5, and I'm currently reading part 6, and I must say, all the good things about this series are 100% true. Jojo's Bizarre Adventure is a must for any anime fan, in my opinion. I even got my dad to watch all 5 parts, and he absolutely loved it. Same with my girlfriend, the person who I started this Jojo journey with. Now, before I watched Jojo, I was familiar with the series. I had seen bits of part 3 in my younger days, and I've played the old Capcom arcade game All-Star Battle and Eyes of Heaven. Currently, I'm also dabbling with the PS2 games Phantom Blood and Golden Wind, but that's besides the point. Jojo's Bizarre Adventure to me is truly an amazing series that's so unique and spectacular in every aspect. Its characters, designs, world, power system. It's no surprise that Jojo has continued to stay as relevant and popular for as long as Araki has been writing it, influencing and being referenced in many works of fiction such as Street Fighter, Paw Patrol, Persona, and so much more. The constant musical references alone packed into the series and the creative ending choices of each part were always a constant treat for me, from Roundabout to Modern Crusaders, and hopefully Virtual Insanity in the future. Jojo oozes creativity and style in every facet of its overall design. Hirohiko Araki has easily become one of my favorite mangakas, and Jojo has easily pushed its way into my top 5, clashing fists with the likes of Naruto, Rurouni Kenshin, Prison School, and the melancholy of Haruhi Suzumiya. When I look at Jojo, I think of 2 series that come close to it with how unique it is visually. These 2 series are Eiichiro Oda's One Piece and the legendary Akira Toriyama's Dragon Ball. These 3 legendary mangaka styles are so distinct I could spot them from a mile away. Oda with the emphasis on exaggeration, Toriyama's sharp angular designs, and Araki's detailed, beautiful designs, all so strong and striking that really boosts the diversity of Shueisha's weekly Shonen Jump. Another standout feature to me was the music. If you're a fan of the channel, you may have heard certain music in each of my videos. Now, I do change it up here and there, but one particular sound always rings through. Taku Iwasaki is an amazing composer whose music I always frequent in my editing endeavors, specifically that of the Rurouni Kenshin OVA series that I've covered briefly on this channel in my Rurouni Kenshin videos. He is one of my favorite composers, and he's a well-seasoned vet in the industry. His sound is present in some of anime's most popular series, from Black Butler to Bungo Stray Dogs, Gurren Lagann, Soul Eater, and Jojo's Bizarre Adventure Part 2. I had already been a fan of this man through Rurouni Kenshin. That alone sold me on how fantastic he was, but his work on Jojo blew my mind. Iwasaki is a man who can go from harmonic melodious, somber songs from Trusted Betrayal to the iconic theme of the Pillarman Awakening, and the action-packed battle music presented in Namco's 1995 classic Soul Edge. For any Final Fantasy fans out there, you may recognize him from Final Fantasy XV's episode Arden, but that's enough of me gushing about this composer. What I'm trying to say is, Jojo's production is surrounded by very talented men. But on the topic of music, before we move on, part 2 aside, I'm not going to ignore Jonathan's heroic character theme in part 1, or Jotaro's bombastic hype song, the Moriocho radio theme that plays damn near at the start of every episode in part 4, which I have as my ringtone by the way, or the inspirational Ongsango of part 5, or the famous pianos that accompany Giorno's theme. The animation quality also has seen significant boost throughout the parts, getting progressively better until it peaks in part 5. I'm not much of an animation man, so I couldn't name every animator present, but I'm sure there are channels for that kind of stuff. point is, the animation is beautiful, and it makes me even more excited to see it shine through part 6 when it gets animated later this year. But enough about the circumstances surrounding the series. Let's talk about the story and the characters. I cannot explain to you how bizarre this series is and how well that description works to its benefit. Araki is able to blend humor, action, and drama so well that each of these never once clashed or felt tonally inconsistent within the story he was telling. From 1880s England to 2000s Italy, the story of each individual part feels so very unique and yet so similar, as they all complement each other, some parts being boosted to greater heights due to its connection and established world building, like parts 1 through 3. I also love the fact that each part has such a different style, really paying homage to Araki's ever-changing art style while drawing this manga. As for characters, Jojo's characters are so well written and interesting. Every time I'm introduced to a new Jobro, Jojo, or villain, I'm never not amazed. Some of my favorites being Joseph, Jotaro, Kakyoin, Polnareff, Dio, Yoshi, Kage, Kira, and Wamu, just to name a few. On the topic of characters, I want to talk a little bit about the villains. Each part had such an interesting evil for our main character to face. By far, in my opinion, the scariest of these villains was Yoshi Kage Kira, and my dad agrees with this as well. Every time he was on screen was unsettling, nerve-wracking, yet intriguing to see what degeneracy he'd come up with next. However, that's not to say that any of the other villains were bad. Far from it. Dio is another standout, a man so pivotal to the series that he overstayed his welcome for 4 whole parts with his influence. A truly evil presence. His entire being in part 3 was bone-chilling, leading to an oh-so-satisfying defeat by the hands of Jotaro. Don't even get me started on the high-stakes classic shonen battles between Joseph's gang in part 2 and the Pillarmen, and the ever-suspense-filled confrontation with Diavolo in part 5. Jojo is a top-notch series, down to the voice acting in both English and Japanese. Johnny Young Bosch and Patrick Setz do an amazing job capturing the 80s British vibe of Dio and Jonathan. Now, the Japanese cast is unbeaten, but the English do a fantastic job. Philip Reich needs to be applauded for his stellar performance recreating the famous 7-page Muda. Araki is easily a masterclass storyteller. He's able to make me cry, laugh, and hype me up when need be. At first, I didn't really like Abakio, but by the time he died, I was in tears. The same for Shigechi, who in my opinion is one of the saddest deaths in the series thus far. It felt great to hear Joseph say his classic phrase, "Your next line is," in part 3, or even see him have a wholesome moment with his son Josuke. These moments genuinely made me smile, laugh, and cry. Now, before I wrap this video up, I know what most JoJo's fans are gonna want to know. They'll want to know my favorite JoJo's, JoBros, and parts. Let's get into that right now. Starting with my favorite JoJo's. I'm gonna be obvious and say the generic one. The JoJo that everyone likes. Coming in first, no surprise, Joseph. Joseph is one of the best characters in the series, from his time as a youth running around saving the world with Caesar, to his time as an old man saving the world with Jotaro and gang, and last but not least, being a father and just a wholesome old man with Josuke. Second is Jotaro. Jotaro is an amazing character who's been through so much and has the chops to show it. He's strong, he's cool, and overall a really likable character. Number 3 is Josuke. Being the son of Joseph, it was a no-brainer. He would act very similar to his father. He was also a fun character to follow on screen. Everything about Josuke oozes personality and style, and I love that about his character. Giorno comes in fourth, and it's not because I dislike Giorno, far from it. He was one of the best parts of part 5, being the son of Dio Brando and Jonathan Joestar, an interesting twist that deepens the lore of the series, sharing both aspects of both fathers with a pretty strong stand to boot. And finally, Jonathan. Now, the only reason Jonathan is this slow is because we never spend enough time with him in part 1, and that's the downside of that part. It doesn't bother me too much, however, because Jonathan served his purpose in the story, and he's also my main in All-Star Battle. For Joe Bros, I'll keep it simple and just list my favorites from each part. Part 1, Speedwagon. Pretty self-explanatory. Now, I don't need to go into details on why I like it. Part 2, von Stroheim. This may shock you, but honestly, every time this dude was on screen, he always impressed and amazed me. Von Stroheim is such a likable character, despite the fact that he's probably working for Part 3, Polnareff. I'll save why I like Polnareff for a future video. To give you a glimpse, he's a character that suffered so much and yet continues to keep fighting, and I just love that about him. And some of the most emotional scenes in the entire series involve Polnareff, and I couldn't ask for more. Part 4, Lord Koichi. Moving on. Last but not least, Part 5, Mista. Mista was a constantly amazing character throughout the course of Part 5, and it was pretty funny how he kept shooting himself. But honestly, depending on the day, I could say Bruno instead, and I think that's a pretty valid swap in for Mista. Now, on to my favorite parts. I won't go into too much detail, but in order of most favorite to least favorite, Part 3, 4, 2, 5, and 1. Part 4 and 3 could easily be swapped around, just depends on how I'm feeling, but don't be fooled. That's not to say that these parts that are lower on the list are bad. In my opinion, all of these parts I love equally. But if I was forced to put them in an order, this would be the order. But that's all I had to say today. I hope you enjoyed this video, and what are your thoughts on JoJo's Bizarre Adventure? This is Grimtoki, this has been Beyond Animation. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, give me a follow on Twitter, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.